everyone, it's Lori with Behavior Education, and in this video I'd like to talk to you a little bit about troubleshooting one of the things that sometimes comes up during target training snakes, and that is striking at the target. It doesn't necessarily happen with all snakes. I have several snakes who have never struck at the target at any point in the target training process, but it's not uncommon at some point in the process, either at the beginning or sometimes at the middle, for snakes to strike at the target. And there are a few reasons why they might do this. Initially, they might be afraid of the target. Remember, it's a neutral stimulus. For most snakes, it's just something that doesn't mean anything to them. They haven't learned to associate it with good or bad. But some snakes may initially be afraid of it. So you may present the target and show it to them for the first time, and they just might back away, or they might strike at it out of fear or uncertainty. Once you've paired the target with food several times and that light bulb goes on in their head and they realize that that target means food, means something to eat, it can trigger them to get in food mode right away, and they could have a prepotent response to seeing that target. And prepotent responses are automatic responses that happen as a result of some stimulus in the environment. Now, this is different from an automatic reflex. So remember that reflexes are things that our body does without us being able to control it. So it's when our pupils dilate in response to a change in light conditions, for example. That's a reflex action. We can't control that. But a prepotent response is something that we can learn to control. If a behavior is prepotent, like perhaps striking at the target because the snake has learned that it means food, that is a behavior that requires some type of active inhibition in order to change that behavior. And it is possible. So one of the things that we are trying to do through target training our snakes is to teach them how to delay a reward coming. So if the snake is striking at the target because of this prepotent response, they can learn to inhibit that, stop the action, wait, delay the reward, touch the target, tongue flick at the target, move towards the target, whatever that criteria is that you expect, and then get their reward. What we're trying to teach them to do is pause, assess, think about it, and then do the behavior that we're asking them to do in order to receive their reward. The other reason that snakes will sometimes strike at the target, and this usually happens further along. I see this in animals that have been target training for a while, and I'm asking them to do more and more and more. And they'll strike at the target at a certain point out of frustration. Maybe my criteria used to be that the snake would tongue flick at the target and move towards it a short distance. But now I'm asking them to move a greater distance, maybe climb up something, maybe touch the target with their nose and pause for a second before I give them the food reward. And they become frustrated that they're not getting the food reward sooner, and so they'll strike at the target. Let's look at a few videos that illustrate what I'm talking about. M14 is our diamond carpet python, Morelia spilota. He is 2 years old this year, and he has been target training since he arrived here. So since his first feeding session, I've been pairing the target with food, and he's been here well over a year. He's quite experienced at target training, and the stage we're at now is just trying to introduce different intervals, making him wait different amounts of times between when he sees the target and gets the reward, and to follow the target to different locations. Something that makes a difference in the snake's response to seeing the target and whether they have this automatic response or they're able to delay action in order to receive the reward can be affected by how long it's been since their last meal. So in this first video, you're going to see it's been 2 or 3 weeks since M14 ate. Because he had been in blue, his meal prior to that was large, and so it was just a longer period of time between his last meal and this target training session. He sees the target and he just goes crazy. He's quite excited about it. He knows it means food, and he just starts striking at it. At one point, you will see that he does hesitate a minute, and if that had been a snake very early on in their target training, I would have rewarded that. But because M14 is not a newbie at this. He's been doing this a while. I have higher expectations of him. And I could see in his body language that he was still really coiled up and wired and was about to strike at any second. I reset the target. He struck it a couple of more times, and I just held it there and waited for him to calm down. And then you'll see that he relaxes just slightly. He pauses in front of the target, and then I give him the food reward. Now let's take a look at the second video, and it's of the same snake, M14, our diamond python. However, during this target training session, M14 has not waited very long between his last meal and this meal. You'll see that he's very focused on the activity, and he's not so much focused on the prospect of getting food right away. His body language is very calm. He approaches the target very cautiously and very calmly. He tongue flicks the target, he touches the target, he pauses. When I remove the target, he doesn't come after it. He pauses where he's at, and then he gets the food reward. That's exactly the response that I'm looking for, as opposed to that first video you saw where he was just very excited. He was in a very excited state, and he was ready to eat, and he had let his automatic response take over. And in the second video, he was thinking. He was very cautious. He was thinking it out. He waited, he paused, he knew exactly what to do, and then he got rewarded for it. Okay, in this third video, this is a different snake. This snake is Saru, and he is a 2-year-old Morelia Bredli. Saru loves to eat. He has a very, very high food drive as compared to many of our other Bredli. Now, Bredli love to eat in general, and I never have any problems with them feeding. However, he's at the high end of the scale as far as having a very, very excitable food response. And we've been working with him since he got here on target training, and he very, very much understands that the target means food. And he has been one that has always struck at the target since the beginning. As soon as that light bulb went on and he understood that that target meant food, he always has struck at the target before calming down enough to do the behavior that I would like him to do, which is cautiously approach it and touch it or tongue flick at it or follow it to a location. He's been doing this for quite a while. So in this particular video, you're gonna see that his strike at the target is kind of lackluster. This behavior with him is starting to extinguish. And this is an example of a snake who used to strike incessantly at the target. What you really want to be careful about is waiting for that striking to stop and waiting for that animal to pause before you reward, because you don't want to reward the snake for striking at the target. Otherwise, that behavior is going to increase. What I've always done with him is just wait, let him get the striking out of his system, and then once he's calm and approaching it calmly, I'll pause another second or two and give him the reward. And he is starting to learn that that is the behavior that gets him the food, not the striking behavior. In this video, you're going to see him after over a year of training, that striking behavior is starting to extinguish. And he is a snake that will eat anytime, any food item. He eats mice, he eats rats, he eats reptilinks. He's like a garbage disposal. For him to delay reward like this is very, very good, knowing his particular temperament and personality. So take a look at this video, and then I think you'll see what I mean. Okay, in this last video that I'm going to show you, it's just a short clip of one of our inland carpet pythons, Morelia spilota mccaffei, and her name is Kostiana, and we had done a whole targeting exercise. So she targeted out of her enclosure across this whole log onto this station and up over the perch, and then I wanted her to come down the other side of the station. She's been target training a long time. We've been working with her a while. She was doing phenomenally well, and just towards the end she got a little frustrated. The duration of the activity was pretty long. The distance I had her travel and the exercises I was having her do were a lot for her. And right at the end, right when I was just about to reward her, she struck at the target once and then she reset herself. I didn't really do anything. I just held the target where it was. And she kind of started over from there, and she calmly approached the target, tongue flicked at it, touched it, and then I gave her the reinforcement. So she corrected herself. I didn't have to do anything. But this particular video is an example of a snake that is striking at the target out of frustration. Everybody, thank you so much for joining me and watching this video about troubleshooting one of the target training behaviors that might come up as you're working with your snake, and that is striking at the target. I always use targets that the snake cannot fit inside their mouth and potentially hurt themselves with or swallow. So whatever species of snake you're working with, when you're thinking about what kind of target to choose, you want to choose one that the snake cannot get inside their mouth. I use a lot of discs because then they can hit it with their nose and strike at it, but they can't get their mouth around it. Or sometimes I'll use a big fat buoy target that there's no way they can open their mouth wide enough to get around. But just keep that in mind when you're working with your snakes, because you certainly don't want them to hurt themselves on the target or to accidentally get it inside their mouths and start to try to swallow it. If you have any questions about target training with your snakes, feel free to contact me via email at behavioureducationllc@gmail.com, or you can reach me through YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or my website, behavioureducation.org. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, please remember to always be kind and love your animals.